Hi, folks. Welcome to the Moving Home Podcast. I'm Jay Norman, and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Jessie Norman. Just like many of you, Jay and I have both walked through some difficult seasons in our lives.
And we know just how easy it is to get stuck.
We now have 5 beautiful
and crazy
children, and because of everything we've been through, our home operates on grace.
A concept we didn't fully understand until way later on in life.
Until we actually needed it ourselves. We want to share through stories of love and laughter,
how we were moving on, and how big of a game changer grace can be.
in relationship with one another, and how we treat ourselves, and in our case, blending a family.
Something that may just require the largest amount of grace to date.
Preach.
You never know what road life's going to take you on. We have a podcast.
Yes, we do, and we really hope y'all enjoy it.
So we're back home today recording in our recording studio, our spray foam attic. And so we've had a lot of questions come in. People have written us and asked us in person questions. And so we were thinking today we might just do a little review.
Right.
And go over some of those questions and talk about that.
Delve a little bit deeper into the things that we have talked about. And we weren't really expecting questions to ever come our way. We've kind of laughed, even in interaction with our friends, they quickly lately turn into counseling sessions, which we don't mind at all, but we are absolutely not certified counselors.
100% a fish out of water over here.
Just wanting to share what goes on in our home and what we do in our home. And so if it works for us, maybe it'll help you guys somehow. Maybe it won't. Just want to say that up front.
Yeah. So we've talked about grace and grace for each other and grace for ourselves and humility and being humble and how all that's tied in. And it led to a lot of questions and we've talked a lot about the phrase and drop the rope. And that's been a topic that we've had a lot of questions over. And that brings us to the first question I wanted to talk about. I wanted to keep it really simple, and then maybe we could go up from there. But the first question that came in was from a friend that said, do you really just say drop the rope to each other? Well, I have said it before.
Do you threaten?
It's dire straits normally when that comes out for drop the rope. But I think between us now, it's been discussed enough that we can just look at each other and know that, hey, it's time to drop the rope. But there has been, I know, at least 2 different times that I've said it to you.
But I think with us, we have an understanding now that it's usually a plea. Like, this is what I'm needing from you. I'm needing for you to just drop the rope right now. And then we just kind of remember where we are in our setting and what we stand for. And if it comes with the right attitude from the other person that gives us a second from the anger, it usually is really helpful to just hear that phrase.
So I think it's going to be up to an individual person, I mean, there's going to be instances you're going to want to holler really loud, drop the rope.
If it comes in a threatening tone, I think that person's going to want to do everything but.
Well, and I think that goes too, if one spouse has listened to the podcast and knows what context and what that means, and maybe just discussed it with the other one and, haven't listed as much, then it might be to where you say, hey, drop the rope.
Sadly, dropping the rope is usually only dropped by the person dropping it. It's not like you can tell someone to drop the rope and then they'll drop it. I mean, in the case where I was saying we plead with each other and then we'll try to figure our way through it. But usually dropping the rope is a really personal decision. And so if you're threatening for someone else rather than just doing it yourself, that's usually not going to work. We have figured out. Because we've tried every way around it.
Sure.
But I think just be a personal decision. It's going to be one that you have to make instead of telling the other person to do it.
Right.
So the next question is a little heavier, but it came actually to us in 3 different forms. It was funny that we had 3 different people ask kind of the same question with a little bit different wording. So I kind of took like a mixture of the 3, but it's, do I tell my spouse about the things that are bothering me, or do I just drop the rope?
Well, I think for us, it depends on the situation. Mm-hmm. If the rope has been dropped and on both sides and it's we're able to talk, and, you can tell when I'm ready to talk, and I can tell when you're ready to talk, then for sure. But in a situation where you've dropped the rope, but you're still upset, and, like we talked about before, and you've gone to bed,
right,
and you really want to go to sleep, you don't want to talk about it,
right.
At that time, I'm just going to let it go, and we'll talk about it the next day.
I think this is to being passive. Like, do I voice my opinion, or do I drop the rope and not voice my opinion? And that's not necessarily what dropping the rope is. Dropping the rope isn't just giving up everything you've ever needed and wanted in a spouse. When you say, do I voice my needs to my spouse, or do I drop the rope? The answer is you do both. And for us, we do both. Yeah. Jay is really good about, if I tell Jay, I really just don't ever want you to, what's something weird? I really just don't want you to ever slam our bedroom door again. Jay will die before that door is slammed ever again. He is so fun to be married to, because if I say one thing, he just makes a note, and like the elephant brain I told you, he remembers so much. That thing never gets done again. So that reaches out to even important things in our marriage. If I'm going to go to Jay and ask him, look, this is really bothering me, and I just really need you to change in this way. I don't enjoy that you do this or that. And we have a calm, kind conversation while we're both, doing well with each other and happy. If then you're not willing to do that, that's when I am going to have to start dropping the rope, because we're married and we're married forever. And so where I've voiced it to you, that's when you're going to be doing some dealings with yourself. Maybe my request is not something that needs to happen. Maybe that's something that I need to learn how to deal with being your partner. We're not perfect people. And so I really do think that the two things really do go together.
Some of that, depending on what it is, it's a time frame. For me, there's things that I do today that when we first married that I had no idea that I would do and never thought that I would. But over time, I realized this, how much of a problem it is, or how much it does bother you, or really how much it's wrong. And so I think, for one part of it, it's a different situation for certain things. If it's something that we really don't agree on, whether it's about children or whether it's about family, all these things we've discussed, that's something over time that we work out together, and it blends into something. If it's something small, like you're talking about slamming a door, that's just a decision that, that's one thing that I know I can eliminate.
Right, easy.
To try to make this right. And it's not necessarily a, conceptual change or whatever in my mind of how something should be. That's just something simple to take care of.
Breaking a habit that's been done years and years and years. Yep. We talked earlier about this, and you said something really neat, that if you're asking, should I drop the rope or, whatever, chances are you're standing there holding it. And that's not healthy in any, situation with your marriage. And so a lot of times we get in that tug of war. You stop trying to accommodate your spouse in one way, and subconsciously your spouse will stop meet you where you are and stop trying to accommodate you in this way. And before you know it, you've got all of these things piled up between you. And it's really just going to be your job to just drop your end and meet them where they are. And you'll become that much more attractive,
Well, for me, that's been one of the biggest changes, for us being together is, just talking about it, period. Instead of just holding it all in and dealing with it however I need to deal with it. We sit down and we talk about it, and we solve it, and, it may take 7 times, it may take 10 times to get to the end game. But
Sure. Well, I heard one time a counselor said, marriage is not to make you happy, but to make you holy. And I think that is so true, because you and I give each other opportunities every single day to grow, because we are two very different people raised in two totally different environments, trying to mesh into one person. And that can be really difficult. We're still newlyweds. But what we were saying a minute ago, the way that you step up for me, if I tell you, look, I really don't like this. It bothers me that you do this and I need help with this. And the way that you immediately adapt and adjust for the sake of our marriage makes me want to look for something. I mean, even, it's as simple in our home, it's as simple as I never have to pick up Jay's clothes. His clothes are nowhere. They're not on our floor. They're not on our couch. They're never anywhere. And that makes me want to make sure mine aren't. It's almost like you lead by example. And that's not a newlywed thing. We kind of, we went really quickly through the infatuation stage. And so that's not an infatuation thing. It's just an absolute respect where he doesn't make me pick up his underwear and I don't want to do that for him too. So it totally is a tug of war or just not, you know.
Well, I mean, it's just work. I mean, it boils down that I'm willing to work for you and you're willing to work for me. If it means physically working or mentally sitting down to talk to it, it's just about getting the job done and being committed to do it.
Yep. But I really just do think it needs to be said that talking to your spouse about what you need or want in a humble way is not the opposite of dropping the rope. So it's not an or question. Should I do this or drop the rope? That's not the opposite. Those two things can happen all at the same time.
Well, and you're not always going to completely drop it, even though, you may think I have. Sometimes you don't. You're still mad and you hang on to it and you have to just fight that, that urge to do anything with it. And it's something that, we've really learned a lot over the last really 6 months. More of it is, when you're in that position and just having to, kind of grit your teeth and then let it go.
And it can happen in a second. It just takes like 1 second of bravery.
Yeah.
And it is the most painful, god-awful second of your day. But if you a lot of times with Jay and I put some distance between he and I pretty quickly if we're in an argument. And there's been several of our arguments that have been ended by me just turning and walking towards them. And if I can and I'm telling myself for an hour, walk towards them. But if I can just get over myself for 1 second and turn in his direction and walk towards him, he's done.
Yeah,
it's done.
Over.
It's over. And so find out that little thing for y'all's marriage. What is that? What is that little flip of the switch? What is it that does it for y'all? And maybe, it's only going to take a moment. And if you can just get that done, and like we were saying in the last episode, have the humility to leave that rope on the ground. Don't reach over and pick it up because your feelings are going to drive you over to it. We really think that you can make some real progress in growing as a team.
Yep.
Are you ready for the next one? Do you want to read it?
Nope, you go ahead.
Okay. When you know that your spouse knows what they can do to break down walls, but don't, how do you drop the rope? And a thing in there that they wrote also is it makes them not, when the spouse doesn't do that work, it makes them not want to drop the rope. And it makes them actually hold on tighter to it and move further away from them.
Yeah.
So pretty much being completely unattractive and driving them away.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think back to some of our conversations that we had over, let's just say holidays that went on for 2 years, really.
Yeah.
And we addressed them at different times and through different parts of the year. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I held on the rope, for a long time out of stubbornness. And I didn't want to change. I didn't want things to change. But over that time period, and like I said, this was a long one. It was probably, 2 years, mm-hmm. Holding the rope on that. And I think it's a circumstantial deal. I mean, it just depends on how big it is and what you're changing.
Right. I think it takes a lot of prayer. I know things can really change when you're praying for someone. It changes their situation, but mainly it changes your situation and it gives you a better way to look at what's going on. life is not fair and it's not cut straight down the middle. So it's not going to be a husband and a wife 50-50 every year of your life. Sometimes you're going to have to step up a little higher to carry each other, whether it's the husband stepping up or the wife stepping up. And Jay and I have had to do that in our marriage, definitely because in our home, we're believers. And so in our home, Jay is the head of our home. So there have been times where I really just did need to take a step back because I was going through some different issues in my life and I wasn't strong enough to help him lead as I do now. But what was neat is I really could just take a step back and let Jay take us where we were needing to go. And so I think there's just going to be different seasons, and God tells us that all the time. There's going to be a season for this and a season for that. And so if this is your season that you have to give more while your person goes through some personal issues or goes through some development himself or herself, then that's something that you kind of signed up for in the beginning.
Right. Well, and I think that's what I was trying to say a while ago, but did a poor job of it.
No, you didn't.
Is it just that, that particular situation, I mean, it took me that long, and you stayed with it, did what you had to do to make things work. And, when it came down and I finally, realized I did drop the rope and I realized that, hey, this is way more important to her than what I thought. This is, I'm not doing this right and I'm not doing this fairly. Fair, I don't know if fairly is a word, but...
We always have made-up words, and I can't wait when we record. I can't wait to hear which of the words are going to come out.
Let's just hope they're all decent.
Fairly. How did you use it?
Let's not even talk about it.
Let's do it again. How did you use it?
It was a Texas term. It was fairly close, I'll just say that.
Okay.
But...
I think it is a word.
I think it is, too. It's a town for sure. But
okay.
Yeah. But I was just saying, you did what you had to do, and I finally figured out to drop the rope, and I think that was an extended thing that we went through there. But I do know that, that each spouse, I mean, there's a time that you're going to have to carry it.
You really do. It doesn't matter if you're the guy or the girl or the guy or the guy or the girl.
And you may be carrying it at the same time for two different circumstances.
For serious. And that's when you get a chance to shine. If Jay throws me the pass and I'm the one that's got to carry us for a few months, and that gives me a chance to show him what I'm made of. And that's kind of fun. Another friend was asking, what do we do? How do we go about conflict resolution? Or how do we deal with the conflicts in our blended family, because our family is blended? And I told him, we turn them into podcast episodes.
We tear them out.
And, that verse, consider it pure joy when you're faced with many trials. And that has always intrigued me, because when I was really little, I remember I was like in second or third grade in Sunday school, and they told us that. And we were just all kind of joking, like, when something really bad happens, we've got to do a cheer. And I was like, what? Like, we got to do a what? And why would we, But that's the funnest thing that I've gotten to learn in our life is without those seasons, you really don't know how to appreciate the good parts. These painful beginnings that have happened in our marriage and in our family and in our podcast, goodness, just in our podcast, the painful starts to everything that we had no idea what we were doing. If those wouldn't have occurred, we wouldn't have so much gratitude for what's happening now in our marriage. We wouldn't have gratitude every day that we're doing so well. In our family, we wouldn't have gratitude. And so now I feel like 2018 and 19 is when we really have figured out how to consider it joy, when these trials are hitting us. And I joke, of course, it provides content for our episodes,
right.
But it really does, I don't know, it's like we walk through that storm, and then when we get on the other side, the celebration is just so enjoyable, and the strength that we feel and that we're still alive.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something that you talk about a lot, and we've talked about a lot, is the first of everything that happens. You know how hard it is, and I mean that can, you just have to get that one out of the way. We've walked through it with kids,
everything,
and once you get that out of the way,
the painful first, the tears that you shed over, like I said, we're a blended family, so the tears you shed over hearing that your child had a birthday party and you weren't invited to it, which isn't normal. They have 2 parties now, but hearing that your child is at their birthday party right now, blowing out their candles, and you're not there, those tears that you shed will never happen again. They will happen, but they won't happen to that extent. Each time gets easier and easier, and so it's just a first. And they're painful firsts. What's another example that's not stepping on toes too badly?
Well, I think where I was kind of going with it is that, not only we have the first with our kids and relationships and the first with our exes and family members and ex-family members and all that, but I guess what I was alluding to too is just the first, just within our personal relationship of, this, this bothers her, I'm going to have to do that this time, or, we got that fight out of the way over that. Then after that, things got better.
Living and learning from that. Yep.
And that first comes on, we've had it on just about every circumstance in our personal relationship too.
Right. It's just a first. And that's what he always tells us when we're coming out of the thick of it. It was just a first. It was just a first, and now we'll know, And there's, I say Jay's really great at adapting and things, but he's still human. And so the two of us, we have things and issues just like everyone else that are hardwired into us. And so it's hard to break these things that we've done for our entire lives. And when you're joining 2 people together and those things are not necessarily compatible, those are hard.
Right. And, my attitude on that, and what episode 2, the monkey piss in the ocean, is that most of the time that it does not amount to enough to, to want to fight about it to the bitter end.
Right.
The things that matter most, I think, when you get to that part where things are calm and you can sit down and lay it out, really honestly, more than half of it is probably stuff that really doesn't matter.
Right. If you can just take a step back and even go through a trial period where you allow it to happen. You drop the rope, you allow it to happen, you try to sit in another seat and look at it from a different angle and see how it affects your marriage. If it doesn't, if you can pray about it and change your heart. I know there's been times in my life where I've been around people that really just got under my skin, just a clash in personalities. And my mom taught me when I was very young that we pray for those people in our lives. It changes the situation. It changes our hearts. It changes the way we look at them. It changes the way we see them. Just like we said in the other episodes, we just don't ever know why someone behaves the way they do. We don't ever know what they're walking through, what's going on at home. And praying for that person can really help you through those things. And so I think if it's small and if you can go to the Lord in prayer, I think that really can help. And if you can show your spouse that you are there, you're there to stay, and you can get past some things because of the love that you have for them, that's a huge statement.
Well, and I think, too, when you get things headed somewhat down the right road, when you start talking about one-up,
right.
If I one-up you for...
You're so right.
For doing something, if I'm doing something, just dropping the rope and saying, boy, that's awesome, let's do it, even though I don't care anything about it, or, it's not really a right description of that, but you know what I'm saying, and you come back the next.
Meet you where you are.
Right.
Meet you step for step. I thought you were going in the opposite direction versus... if you cut me, I'm going to cut you.
Right.
And that happens in our relationships with our children also. The uglier one of them can get and the uglier we reciprocate, pulling on that rope, that it just sends them, heightened, the situation gets so heightened, and it's like we've realized that as soon as it starts, if you can stop it, I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah.
You don't lose those few hours of your life. The home, the energy that's just now come into the home because of that yucky situation, it goes right out the window when you get to proceed with the rest of your day by simply just having humility and being able to just flip that switch like, nope, not today. You can go try to touch another family, but you're not touching this one. And if we could keep that attitude with our spouse, just how unattractive it is when your spouse is pulling on that rope. It angers you to see them pulling. It angers you to see that stubbornness is just the exact opposite to the attractiveness and the luster they have when you see them getting over themselves in a way that you've never seen them before do it. And so I think if you can just find a way to get it done and just watch the way they now speak to you and now the way that they treat you, it's just a whole different ball game.
Well, and I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed with you, over time is that, where I do remember to not slam that door or do this or do that.
You've never slammed our door. I just want to tell
I know that, but I'm just saying. But something along that line where I mean, you have gone
little nitpicky things,
right? You have gone out of your way to either ignore something that I know probably bothers you, or to do something
right
to say, "Hey, I know what you did over here. We don't talk about it, but I mean, I can see it,
right?
Because I know how you feel about it, and you don't go out of your way to make it right. If you're going to do that, I'm going to make it right on this end.
Yeah, you do pay attention to me a lot. So a lot of things we don't really even have to say to each other. He'll just kind of read my energy. We're pretty connected when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Good or bad energy.
And, Did you hear? I was nervous. And he'll know what's about to happen from me because of the past. And when it doesn't happen, it's almost like he goes and gets me a Diet Coke, like a dog or something. Like you can just see him so proud and watching the process. And now I'm proud of myself. And it goes both ways. But we just kind of, we're just, we're down the path and we're going to just still try to follow it and see where it goes.
And it definitely brings accountability up. I think you can sit down and have a conversation with each other about it. It does put it out there, and it's it's not going to work every time. But
it's not, and I think that's important to tell them that we had a doozy this weekend, and we're not going to try to hide that or try to paint a perfect picture for you guys that we've got it figured out and now we only enjoy wedded bliss. I mean, we had a doozy on Saturday. But I'll tell you this, it did not resemble any other fight that we've ever had. And so that's a way that we can figure this way through, but we still have some very strong personalities and we've still got some, I deal with some mental health issues as far as anxiety and some low days. And that's a lot for Jay to deal with. And so we have to use this just as much as anyone that's listening to this episode. We're not better than anybody. We just want to keep telling that to everyone. We're happy with how things are going and we want to share our life and we feel called by the Lord to share our life. But we just don't want anyone to ever think that we are better than anyone. We're not.
We're 100% a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I hope that it keeps continuing to grow and get better like it has.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, because, we probably won't ever get there 100% because life throws too many things at you that affect you and change you. But as long as we're working on it and talking about it, I mean, I think we've started down the right path anyway.
Right. I think the communication is really important for them to take away from this.
And we can still get quiet and not,
very quiet.
not talk to each other and, have to have our time. But ultimately it boils down to making that move to end it.
Right. Well, are you ready for the last question that I don't want to read to you?
Yes, I didn't know we had another one, but go ahead.
Okay, here's a doozy. I almost didn't write this one down. Y'all have both been through divorce and been married a few years, we've just been married a couple of years. For those of us in the thick of marriage struggles, how do you drop the rope when the battles are not so simple?
That is a doozy.
Isn't it?
That is a doozy.
Yep. But, just in the past few days, babe, I've just gotten so many texts from friends that have talked to their spouse about divorce, are on the cusp of divorce. And again, we are not marriage counselors, and we're not the blind leading the blind, but we just want to be able to speak truth into anyone that's listening, where maybe you are listening to this episode versus going and sitting with your spouse and a counselor. So if these are words that are getting to you, we just pray that they can help your marriage.
Yeah.
Our problems aren't simple. I know we laugh and we probably sound happy on our podcast, and we are very happy. And I have questioned that before, or wondered if people did question, do they know what they're talking about if they haven't really ever faced some real issues? We keep our problems pretty vague because we've got small children. And so we don't ever want to, our dirty laundry is their dirty laundry. And so we don't feel comfortable airing 5 children under 18's laundry.
Right.
So we're here, our problems have been so large that we decided to do a podcast, if that tells you anything. I promise you that if you come to us with anything that you bring to us, whether you go into the DMs or send us an email or visit the website, I promise you that any situation that you are going through with your spouse or you're experiencing with your spouse, you are not going to blow our hair back. We've heard it. We've been through it. We've experienced it. It's not going to surprise us. You couldn't wow us if you tried. And I just say that to tell you this is such a comfortable space here. And that's why Jay and I are here, is because we've been through it all and we've seen it all. And we just didn't want one more person to feel alone like we did, or like I did.
Right.
I'll speak for myself. I felt very, very alone. And I just don't want to live one more day thinking that someone else is feeling that way.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's a pit to get in and a hard pit to get out of. Mm-hmm. And it takes help, and it takes teamwork. And, when you talk about divorce, I mean, we don't want anybody to ever go through that.
Mm-mm.
And
not at all.
It's a tough road. And
we don't know how to say, we're divorced, but we are divorced, but we are not for divorce. And we don't really know how to really navigate that. We're trying to gracefully. It feels like kind of we're stumbling through it. It's hard to describe that feeling because
and you don't feel right saying it because you are divorced.
Yes, you don't feel right saying it because I would do anything to be married to my man. But we don't wish the pain that we walked through, or I don't wish the pain that I walked through. I don't wish it on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
And so we are not proponents for divorce. We are proponents for dropping the rope and growing your marriage and finding your right path to the Lord and making sure that you are straight with Him so that He can heal your marriage, and to let you know that no marriage is too far gone, and these things that we're talking about, the way that you can drop the rope and change the situation in 1 second, marriages can be changed overnight. Marriages can be headed in the opposite direction overnight. They can't be fixed overnight. But God tells us, no matter how far from Him we are, as soon as we turn back, that's where He meets us. He doesn't need us to work, our butts off to prove ourselves to Him for 2 weeks or 2 years or any amount of time. He says the moment we turn back to Him, that's where He meets you. And if you need Him to meet you right where you are in your brokenness and in your broken marriage, it just simply takes that turning to Him, just like I was saying a minute ago, turning to Jay and walking to him, it just ends our fight. It just, all of the energy in the room that's ugly just goes out the window. And I feel like that's such a neat example for God to show us in our marriage, that just like you turn to Jay and it goes away, just turn back to me and I'll be right there,
Yeah. Well, baby, I think that's all, that's spot on. And, looking at it from the man's standpoint, that, when you're in a fight, you're in a struggle, the pride and not being humble, not having humility, to be able to have that grace for somebody else. I think we both, what we've walked through, we can look back on things that we did in our past marriages that, that would be different if we knew what we knew now.
Right.
And, maybe behave the way we behave now, that it took getting slapped in the face and it took getting, knocked down and kind of dragged through the mud and, and then getting back up to really look back and see all that. And, for me, if I'm having a conversation, with my best friend and he's telling me this, I think that's, ultimately what it boils down to from a man's standpoint. Buddy, I don't know what to tell you other than you're going to have to dig deep and you're going to have to swallow a lot of pride and a lot of humility. And you need to have the ultimate grace, for that other person, because the only way you're going to get that back is to give it. And right. And you got to, you just got to ultimately just let it all go, because it's worth, dropping all that and doing it and giving that grace just to see what you get back, to have that chance. And,
right.
I hate for anybody to have to go through it.
No, no.
It's a tough road.
It's tough for us to describe because, you can't really ask us, what would we do if we could do it all over again?
Right.
It's so tough to describe, and I think it's such a personal decision.
Right.
But if you want to know where Jay and I stand, we are for marriage.
Yep.
And we are for families.
Yep.
And I asked Jay, I said, we had such a fun episode 3. Jay and I listened to it a few times and laughed our tails off the whole episode. And I said, we need to think of something funny tonight because it's so heavy. And we so did not take care of that.
No, we didn't.
Sorry. But I think that we should wrap it up. I think we've gone a little long.
Yep. Well, and, this is a new deal for us, because we have had such an outreach for people. And we just felt like that we needed to talk about it. And, we'll be back on topic with other stuff. And, I'm sure the questions will keep coming. And
right.
I don't know, baby, you got anything else?
I know a lot has come in, people saying, I'm Jay and my husband is you, or I'm you and my husband is Jay. That has been the most said to us out of anything. It's just getting pretty hilarious. And so I think that would be something funny if y'all feel the same way. Let us know. Let us know on Instagram or let us know on Facebook who is who. It'll be kind of fun to hear who you relate to the most.
What else you got?
I don't think anything else. Do you, babe?
No, I don't have anything.
We're forgetting anything.
Nope. As the song says, the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
I love you.
I love you too. We sure appreciate y'all listening today. If you'd like to follow us on social media, you can search for us, Moving On Podcast. That's 3 words. On Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you. With ways you're figuring out how to drop the ropes in each of your own lives, and even ways that you're not. Hell, that's just as entertaining to us. See you in a couple of weeks.